What car reliability survey? Beyond is on. Rotary engine is back. FIA regulations on production EVs. Apprenticeships and a different approach. 5 Ferrari Testarossas for sale in Belfast. Dual clutch is gone, says BMW M Division. And Lookers has been sold. Hello, welcome to this week's MotorZen News, and I'm Paul Callan. What Car magazine in the UK has done a survey of 25,000 car owners. They've produced in that survey a list of the top 10 most unreliable cars and the top 10 most reliable cars. In the top 10 most reliable cars we have Suzuki, Lexus, Toyota, Honda, Kia, Mitsubishi, Mazda, Hyundai, Skoda and Seat. That's the top 10 in the most reliable. The top 10 in the most unreliable: Citroen is at number 1, Land Rover, Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, Subaru, Peugeot, Fiat, Jaguar, Nissan and Mini. Number 1 most unreliable vehicle was the Land Rover Discovery from 2004 to 2017 model. I think they'll actually discover when they started to do a survey on the 2017 on it's even more unreliable, because I wouldn't have considered it to be as bad as the current one. But if you look at some of the most unreliable, it's interesting there. No surprise with Citroen, no surprise with Land Rover. Big surprise with Tesla, I suppose. You think that they're, being electric, that there's much less possibility of unreliable issues. But I think that initially there are a lot of build quality issues. Mercedes-Benz in there in 4th place. Subaru really surprised me there, because I always say that most of them are Japanese built and they're very good. Fiat doing quite well, but not that I have much of a product range now, ahead of Jaguar and ahead of Nissan, So, but an interesting survey, and you probably have predicted a lot of those, but there's some that were a bit surprising. International Motors, who have traditionally been the importer of Subaru and Isuzu, they're also now the importers for Great Wall or the Aura. Okay, they don't bring Isuzu into Ireland, that's done by Harris. They are now starting to roll out sales and service structure for the Beyond. It's a German small electric light commercial vehicle. It's an example of one of these specialist vehicles now, which we're seeing more and more of, vehicles that are designed for specific applications, and these are designed for what they're calling the last mile delivery. So in urban small deliveries, in confined spaces and in built up areas. The vehicle comes in 2 options. It comes in what they call the box, which means it has a box body, and or the pure, which comes with basically a chassis and cab, and you can build a body on it. Deutsche Post used them in Germany. There's 24,000 of them in use in Germany right now. They've done a total of 250 million miles in the last 6 years. They run an 11 kilowatt battery, which they say on an AC charge will take 80% to full capacity in 3 hours. It's got a max of 125 miles. They're looking for dealers in the UK and Ireland. In the UK, they reckon they need 25 dealers, and in Ireland they need 3 to 4. But another interesting niche product that will be an opportunity for somebody, not the big dealers, not the big dealer groups, just small organisations creating small opportunities for probably smaller type businesses. Mazda are putting the rotary engine back into production. Last time it was produced was 11 years ago in the RX-8. But relax, it's not going to be a performance car. It's going to go into the MX-30. It's going to be an engine that either charges the battery or is used for supplementary power. So it's not a direct drive. There is no link between this engine and the wheels. So again, they're bringing the rotary out for this application because they seem to think that it's a good application for this type of requirement. But no direct drive. It's simply going to charge the battery or add energy to the motors when needed, according to what the requirements are. It's a PHEV vehicle, 7.8 kilowatt battery and 50 litres of fuel, 120 kilowatt output on the motor. But again, rotary engine coming back, but not in as we know it. Interesting document released this week from FIA, the Federation of Motorsport, and it's a document that is the regulations for an electric race car, but it's for very much club orientated race cars. And I know the purist says that's not racing and that's not proper cars, and yeah. But when I've looked at electric in terms of motorsport, I kept thinking it's really easy entry, because there are no bits, there are no engines, there are no problems, there are no carburetors, there are no ECUs. There's so little things to go wrong with these that really, in terms of everybody arriving up and having a relatively similar power output and have a relatively reliable vehicle, I keep thinking this ticks a lot of boxes. And in fairness to FIA, they've produced a document along those lines, which is for affordable entry-level EV racing on production cars. So what they're saying is the car must have 300 units produced over 24 months if it's going to be homologated into this class. It has a max of 300 kilowatt of power. It can be four-door, it can be two-wheel drive, it can be four-wheel drive. The reason they're saying it can be four-door is because more and more cars are only available in four-door. So they've taken a real practical approach to this. Now, they've put some very rigorous high voltage regulations into place around the safety of the vehicles and the safety of the electric. But I think when all that's said and done, I think you could have some very interesting racing formulas here with these vehicles that could be done really easily and really inexpensively. They're also saying that the vehicle can be roadworthy. So what they're driving, forgive the pun, but what they're driving towards here is that you could use it for circuit racing, you could use it for sprint events, and that it would be road legal. So old school, you could drive to the event, do the event, and drive the vehicle home again, provided you don't make bits of it, that is. But an interesting regulation, and it's good to see that the FIA are moving ahead now with electric. And I know the purists will argue against it, but I think in terms of just a bit of fun and a bit of cheap and easy fun, relatively speaking, I think EV is an interesting prospect in this segment of motorsport. Apprentices pay their dues before they get to do what they want to, which is work on cars, and then we wonder why the apprentice left. I read an article recently from a panel of experts in Canada, and they were discussing the whole pros and cons around apprenticeships. And again, like us and the rest of the world, they need to get more people in to serve their apprenticeship to work on cars. They're discussing that they try and create a better image around being a motor technician, that people don't have a real appreciation of how important the job is in society. They're saying that it needs to be put up there as a profession, like a doctor or a lawyer. Obviously, we'll have the other argument saying, well, then pay us like a doctor and a lawyer. But they're also saying that, if an apprentice works with a well-run workshop with a good workshop owner, that they get a bit different perspective on being an apprentice, and they set their target out, and that they can be like that when they become a technician. Some of the people on this panel one guy described it, says he never gives a brush to an apprentice. He sends them out with an experienced technician to learn. Well, I personally can go back on this, where I started serving my time. And the big killer for me was that my foreman at the time, now it's 40 years ago this year that I went to serve my time, but the foreman told me that years ago it used to be a 5-year apprenticeship and you didn't get road testing until your 5th year. So I definitely wanted to work on cars, but I also wanted to drive them. So that really burst my balloon. But Willie went off sick shortly after that, and I got road testing. But also sometimes when I talk to guys about apprenticeships, and are they taking on apprenticeships, they're not doing it because various reasons and various problems. But then I'm saying, well, how do you expect to have availability of people in the trade if you're not bringing anybody on? So you need to work around this. We need to figure out, how do we do this? How do we manage to communicate, link and connect with these young people? Because I think if we take the right approach, there's a fantastic career here, and there's a career that many of them will aspire to do and will be very successful in. But we have a responsibility to try and find that path for them initially. And that's what this document was discussing, and I think it applies very much to us here in Britain and Ireland, as we have to put more effort into finding the people. Did you hear the one about a man that came from America to buy 5 Ferrari Testarossas in Belfast? No, that's not a joke. It's true. Richard Rawlings from Fast and Loud fame, from his workshop in Dallas, Texas, Gas Monkey Garage. Well, Richard Rawlings came to Belfast and met with John Paul Walsh of J&F Group to buy 5 Ferrari Testarossas. Yep. How did they come to be here? Well, they've been using a film that was made in Belfast with Mark Wahlberg called Infinite. And John Paul bought the cars in one deal, and Richard Rawlings in America heard about it, and he decided to come over and have a look. and they did a deal. They bought the 5 Testarossas in various different forms. The cars were modified. Some of the engines were taken out and they put American V8s in them to use them in different stunts. They had one steering from the rear in order to use it in high-speed reversing shots and stuff like that. There was one of them which was untouched, which obviously was the one they were using for normal film work and not stunt work. But Richard Rawlings has bought the 5 of them. If you go on YouTube, you'll see it. You'll see him coming to Belfast to do the deal, and you'll see him transporting them or opening the container at his workshop in Dallas, Texas, and removing them from the container to start to work on them. And obviously that's going to be ongoing now as they start to build the cars back up in America. But yeah, they originated in Belfast City, so an interesting story there on those 5 Testarossas. BMW have the head of development at M Division has come out and said that the DCT, the dual clutch transmission, is no more. What he said is that the 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission that they buy from ZF, effectively saying the change on them is better than the change on the dual clutch transmission. So they're saying they're no longer offering the dual clutch transmission. So he's even gone as far as to say that maybe there will be no more manuals, which I find is strange, because some manufacturers now are realizing that the fun of driving and enjoyment of driving comes from manual, and that the feel is not just the same, or the fun is not the same. And really, if you look at an M Sport, the idea was driving. It's all about driving. It's all about the drive experience. Now, yeah, I haven't experienced an 8-speed torque converter ZF, but they do say it changes very, very fast. But I still would say it's very hard to get the feeling of a normal manual transmission when you really want to stick your neck out and do some fun driving. Lookers Group in the UK, which is 150 dealer sites, is being bought out by a company from Canada called Alpha Auto Group, AAG, for 465 million. Now again, we have a link here in Ireland to this deal because Lookers owns Charles Hurst in Northern Ireland. And it's just interesting, you know, if you look at the dynamic, there was a time when Charles Hurst yard, the facility in Berkshire Road in Belfast, was said to be the biggest single site in Europe. Maybe if there's somebody out there who knows exactly the timeline on that, but somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, it was the biggest single dealership site in Europe. But then again, time moves on. So Charles Hurst gets bought out by Lookers. Lookers have 150 dealerships, and you think, wow, it's mega. Well, now Lookers are getting bought out by this company from Canada. The figures on it, 465 million, but because I have such an interest in the motor industry, I looked at the numbers on this, and if you look, you think, how does anybody make this money back? Well, if you look at it, Lookers has got 66.5 million in the bank. Its property is worth 290 million, and it makes 82 million a year. So really, you know, you're probably only given 100 million for the business, and you're making 82 million in a year. So it doesn't look like a bad deal overall when you break it down. Mega numbers on the grand scale of things, but again, it's just because we would have a connection with Lookers, because we would have a connection with Charles Hurst, and we now see that one big conglomerate again is buying those out, and it just goes on, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's it for this week, and it's the usual gig. If you could like, comment and subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We're getting a regular grouping of people that are watching us. We're starting to get a bit of chat around the country and from various people we speak with, but at least if you could give us a thumbs up, give us that little bit of support, it's a big help to us. Thanks for that, and see you next week.